You're listening to a podcast by Oak Magazine. I would like to acknowledge the Dja Dja Wurrung people as the traditional owners of the land on which this episode was recorded. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures. Welcome to A Friend of Mine, a series of conversations with some incredible and inspiring women in business from regional and rural Australia. I'm Kimberly Finesse, your host and the founder and editor of Oak Magazine, and I cannot wait to introduce you to some amazing female entrepreneurs who will share with you their experience and knowledge of what it takes to start, grow and scale a successful business. So let me introduce you to a friend of mine. After years as a CEO in the not-for-profit sector, Linda Goldspink-Lord quit the safety net of her job when her health took a turn for the worse. In 2012, Linda experienced every parent's worst nightmare when her daughter Molly was killed in a tragic accident on their property in the Illawarra. Having also recently lost her mother and suffered major health problems of her own, Linda had to find a way out of the darkness back to the light. Trying to recover from grief, Linda explored how her health was having an impact on her mental well-being. She looked into links between the gut and the brain and made some big lifestyle changes. When her horses were struggling with their overall health, Linda looked into gut health for horses, and so Poseidon Equine was born, a scientifically formulated gut health supplement for horses. After that came Poseidon Canine and Saint Sinner's alcoholic kombucha. Linda shares with us her story of how she's built resilience after great loss and why she'd never go back to the 9 to 5. She also talks about her latest book, Crawling Through the Darkness. Meet my friend Linda, business owner, author, speaker, and incredible storyteller. Hello, Linda, and welcome to our special 5-part series in celebration of International Women's Day.
Thank you for having me.
It's my absolute pleasure, and I am so looking forward to speaking with you about how you've built resilience after great loss, why you'd never go back to the 9 to 5, one of your many businesses, your book. I mean, there is actually so much. And I feel like we're not going to get to all of it in a podcast and wouldn't do all of it justice either. But given that we're talking about the 9 to 5, I thought, could you give us a bit of a lead up to your role as a CEO in the not-for-profit sector?
Sure. Look, I had the most amazing opportunity as a fairly new graduate from uni. I was working in the drug and alcohol sector and ended up being a CEO at the age of 22 or 23,
Wow.
I forget now. And I look back and think, really, what made you think you were actually, capable of doing that? But I'm so glad I did. And what was amazing was I was thrown into this role that I had to learn, and I learned a lot. But working in the charity sector has its own challenges, and I'm sure we'll chat about that later. But that's what, I guess I've always been wired to want to have a job where I could actually have purpose and make a difference. So I started working in drug and alcohol as a CEO, and I was there for a long time.
Wow. And at 22, that's absolutely remarkable age as well as gender as well, Linda. Like, you wouldn't find too many 22-year-old CEOs. Did you have any mentors then at the time? Or, was there a lot of self-doubt at that time in what you were doing?
That's a great question. And I look back and think, no, there wasn't. I just felt like, why couldn't I do that? And, we'll talk about resilience later, but growing up in a family, my mum and dad would always, I guess, encourage us, but take responsibility for the mistakes that you make. That doesn't stop you. You go out and try. And I was very fortunate because I did work at the higher level in the charity sector, sitting on boards. It was very male, dominant. And I don't remember ever thinking, well, I'm only female, I shouldn't be here. No, I just had this innate, like, come on, why, if it's not you, why not you, So probably I knew that I had a lot to learn, but I was also then driven, if I don't have an answer, find that. I did get a mentor, but it was further along, and I think mentors are so important. And I do a lot of that now because I feel like you can learn from other people all the time.
Yeah. I know that that's something that I'm always looking for, a mentor. And I think when I stopped looking, I found the right one as well. So,
Okay.
um,
That's interesting. Yeah.
now you quit the safety net of that job when your health took a little turn for the worse. Do you want to take us through that period and what had happened?
Sure. And it was interesting that the term quit because I think I was sort of pushed and shoved. Literally, I was loving my job, but yes, it was a 9 to 5 job. However, it just was so much more than that. And, you were not getting paid for those other hours, but I still did them because I love what I did. And I think, like a lot of people, I was trying to do everything. I was super fit at the time. I had a challenging job. I had 3 children that were young. I was trying to volunteer at the school. And what I've now learned is that we really aren't wired to work so hard all the time. And my body gave me warning signs. I ignored them. I didn't have time to be sick. I didn't have time to get off this, fast paced treadmill. So literally, my body just said enough's enough. And I collapsed at work. And I look back and think, really it was a gift. But at the time, I remember being in hospital on 24-hour supervision and ringing work and saying, okay, I'll be back next week. And, I never returned back to that job. But it was literally started the journey of learning about trying to find balance in your life because we tend to want to overachieve. And maybe I was working harder because I was younger and female. I don't remember that being a conscious thought, but I think as a mum, you want to try and be the best mum you can be, and then you're trying to be the best employee or the best boss. Something has to give.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the terrible thing is that I've heard other women say that they've ended up in hospital. So, the fact that it is actually quite common, there are so many of us. And I think what you said, and I need our listeners to hear this, we are not built to work so hard. Like, as you said, you have a really high paced job at a high level. And then you're doing school duties, like committees and that.
Absolutely.
And, you
Canteen
know,
duty and
oh my
fundraising.
no, no. I've got 4, Linda, and I refuse to. Like, I
Gosh.
just know that will be the straw
Yeah.
that breaks my back
Yeah.
to do canteen
Good on you.
duty.
Good on you to know your boundaries because I certainly didn't.
Absolutely. And obviously, to look after kids as well is always just one of those things, they require a lot of our energy and time. And
And rightly so, rightly so. And I feel that as mums, we do try to do everything. And motherhood is such a wonderful, privileged role. And I look back and think, gosh, why did I think work was so important all the time? Yes, you've got to pay the bills, but there's got to be balance.
yeah, there does. There really does. Now, there's sort of no way to step into this next section of your story. You didn't go back to that job or back to a 9 to 5 either. You obviously had something, quite big that happened in your life that, many people don't experience. Do you want to take us through that?
Sure. Look, I think I was probably about. Well, there's a few parts of this story in my recovery because I was very sick and I was bedridden and very unwell for a long time. My parents who lived in country Wagga would come down and look after me, and I noticed my mum was sort of slowing down and thought finally, she was starting to appreciate life, but I didn't know she had terminal cancer, and mum passed away. I think 12 months after I first got sick. And that was just, when your mum passes away, the world's a different place. And it certainly was for me. And I remember thinking, gosh, my health, my job, my mum, this is hard. What am I going to do? And started to, appreciate that you've got to make every day count. But then 3 years after that, look, time has no meaning for me, really. My beautiful 13-year-old daughter, Molly, was killed in an accident on our property. And there are no words to describe what that does to you. And so then the real journey, the real challenges started. And as we mentioned earlier, we could do a whole podcast just on that. But what I've learned is when you hit rock bottom, you have to find a way to, first you have to want to get up.
Mm.
And then you have to figure out, and then what? And then how do I keep going forward? So for me, I learnt about what's important, what are the priorities, and I learnt so much along the way. So Yeah, it's been, and every day I still, obviously, as a family, we deal with the loss.
Yeah, yep. And as you said, like trying to recover from grief is both mental, physical, it's your health, it's just everything.
Absolutely.
When that all sort of come to a point where you sort of thought, yeah, as you said, like I need to get up, I need to want to get up. What improvements did you start making? What changes to your life? How did you go forward
Mm.
differently?
There's so many things that I had to do, but I think the first thing was, I was a mum, I was a wife, I had, their needs to really worry about, but I also knew that I had a right to still live a life of purpose.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I learnt is that death and loss and grief is just not talked about. And unfortunately, when it is spoken about, it's all about, well, the really negative things, your marriage will break up, you'll never be
Mm.
well again, your children will just go off the rails. And I just wanted a different possibility. And I look back at the history of my life, and the theme of resilience has probably played, all the way through that. But something that I did, which is really interesting, and I'm sure we'll talk about my businesses in a moment, but apart from the whole finding the right support and doing all the more traditional things, I literally changed the way I ate, and I learned about the power of gut health. And this is, again, another thing that I'm really passionate about, because what a lot of us don't understand is that what you eat impacts every aspect of you, including your mental health. And for me, that was the game changer that gave me the innate resilience. I talk about it in my book that I've just written, about how changing what I ate and reducing the amount of sugar and processed food, it's like my grief had a buffer over it. And I also had more clarity. So it helped me in so many ways.
Yeah, I like how you said that what you eat put a buffer over your grief. That's a really interesting way of, I suppose, describing food, of what it can do. Like,
Mm.
can you remember then back when you were a CEO, Linda, like what
Mhm.
was your diet like back then? Like,
Oh,
I know this might be a
no,
while
no.
ago.
Great question, because I look back and go, how did I get so sick? And I actually had a virus in my brain, and that's why I collapsed. And it was interesting looking back again that, I'd had other things go wrong, but I'm always thinking, thinking, thinking. And it was almost like it went to my point of vulnerability, and my brain was so overworked. And at the time, there was a big push for low fat food. And I've always
Yep.
been, health conscious, weight conscious. But I didn't know that low fat food was full of sugar. And also, and I cringe when I think about this, I used to drink a lot of diet soft drink because, again, it was promoted as a healthy choice. So whilst I thought I was being very health conscious, really I was having a very high sugar diet. And what we now know is that then can cause what we call leaky gut, and all the bad stuff that hangs in your gut just basically gets through the gut wall and then finds a place to create havoc, and it shows up in lots of ways. And for me, it was like leaky brain. And so I think about the stress of my job, the hours I was working, the travel. I was really fit. I'm not saying exercise is bad, but extreme exercise is actually really bad for your gut. And it all just, resulted in this terrible moment. And so, I thought I was doing the right thing, but I wasn't.
Yeah, yep. So you have this obviously interest in gut health, and you didn't go back to a 9 to 5. And I know
No.
you have several businesses. How did all this happen?
Well, once I learned about quitting sugar, and then I felt the changes, I was actually, part of me was quite angry. It's like, why isn't this being spoken about? Because, many people would talk to me about the different types of medication I could take to manage my mental health. And I'm not against antidepressants in any way, but what I was concerned about was, why aren't we understanding the power of what we eat? So once I learnt, and my seizures stopped, my clarity came back. As I said, my grief became a little bit more manageable,
Mm.
which meant I had more ability to cope with my children's grief and everything else that was thrown at me. And so I just went, well, if it's true of humans, is it true of horses? And I love horses. I have 14 of them. And so I went, okay, well, let's find out what we can about horse gut health. And what I realised is that people basically didn't know about it. So again, well, I thought I can do something different. Horses help me as part of my grieving, and they still do every day. They give me such joy that I wanted to give. It's like giving back to them. And so we started on this journey of finding out what products are out there. What do we know about gut health? I sat with leading equine professors whose eyes would glaze over at me going, what are you talking about? And then we started creating these amazing gut products, and the change in horses, makes me so proud of what we're doing. And the thing that's exciting about what we're doing is that we know that gut bacteria, as it does in humans, affects your behavior. And so many horses don't get a chance in life because they are stressed, they're anxious, they're ill, all these things. You change their gut bacteria, you change their life. And again, same as humans. It's quite phenomenal. So every day I get people contacting us saying, thank you, you saved my horse's life. Thank you. I get to go for a ride on a horse now that I never could do before. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And it's so exciting. And I tell my beautiful horse, who's the reason we started this, every day, I said, because of you, buddy, there are thousands of horses living a better life. So it was, and it was a no-brainer to go into the dog space, which we started last year. And it's a newer concept because it's funny, dog owners don't seem to make the link between skin conditions and behavior and anal glands and constipation with the gut. So we're finding it a different space, but that's okay. And then we also created Saint and Sinner, our new alcoholic kombucha.
And then that's for adults, so covering all spectrums.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was a selfish project because now I'm so sensitive to sugar, finding an alcoholic drink of choice that wouldn't make me feel so sick. And also I'm so conscious of managing my mental health that I used to make my own kombucha and I used to add my choice of alcohol to that. And then in the COVID lockdown, my son, who was at the time in his last year of law, I said, hey, I've had this idea for years, let's look at it. And so we did. And it was launched, I think, October last year. And it is so delicious. And there's, no sugar, and it's low in calories. And it's a drink that I can drink without having all the, the horrible side effects of having too much sugar. Obviously, it's alcoholic, so you still have to be responsible. But, it's amazing looking at my journey, how it leads to this moment in time.
Oh, absolutely. My gosh. So you're obviously how do you become a business? There's so many questions. So just wait, Linda. The first one I'm going to ask. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're working in the veterinary science space, like that in itself is just huge. And then kombucha and all of this, but transferable skills.
Okay.
What skills did you take from your 9 to 5? So, as a CEO of a not-for-profit, and apply to your business?
This is probably my favourite question you've asked me so far. And it's something that I am, really keen to share with more business people, that at the end of the day, people want to be listened to and respected and connected. And in the charity sector, we had to do that all the time. If you're asking people to change behaviour, they need to at least feel connected with you. And it's all about relationships. The other thing, working in the charity sector, we had to, collaborate and work together. So I think, obviously I worked in a very specific area, but from my 9 to 5 job, I took away those skills. Also needs assessment, asking people rather than assuming what their pain points are, actually asking them. So what I have found in the commercial world, to my surprise, that often relationships are not supported as much as they could be. And, like little things, I was really fortunate to do a talk recently to some business women, and we're talking about little things like, you go to a coffee shop and they might be really busy serving someone, but if they don't at least look up at you and smile and wave or give you an acknowledgement they've seen you, you kind of go, well, I don't feel very welcome here. It's those little things that make people want to connect with you. And for me, creating real relationships has been the biggest thing I've taken from what I used to do to what I do now. And for me, that's what drives it. It's relationships first, and then, action comes second.
Mm. Do you have a team behind you helping you with all this?
I have an amazing team. Surprisingly, there's not a lot of us in the company. We only have a small team of employees, but what I've done is I've created an amazing team of consultants that work with us so that people can play to their strengths. And, the business world has changed, which has made it easier than ever to not have a 9 to 5 job. Like, look at us. Here we are just connecting. It's a different world, and marketing's changed so that when we first started, we had one person that did everything, our copywriting, our marketing, our social media. Now I've got this great team that, they'll just specialize in copywriting, or they'll specialize in graphic design, or they'll specialize in logistics. And that's what makes a huge difference. And then as we change and the business evolves, it may be that I need a new skill set. So, because one person can't do everything. And we need to know that ourselves. We can't do everything. I'm really good at delegating. I wasn't so good when I got sick. I tried to do it all myself. Now I know I play to my strengths.
What do you consider your strengths?
Okay. I'm being very biased. I think my resilience really, and that how that shows up is that if there's a problem, rather than going, I'm stuck, I don't know what to do with this, it's like, okay, do I go around it? Do I go through it? Do I just sit with it and let it, it'll go away eventually? It's finding opportunities and seeing solutions. And also, part of being resilient is knowing that sometimes, you get these challenges, but you learn from them. So it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. You learn, you do something differently. I spoke about the dog product. It's not flying off the shelves like the horse one is. So we're going, okay, what are we missing? What is the difference between a dog owner and a horse owner? And they are very different. So being resilient is about grabbing every opportunity and seeing whether it fits. So I think that's probably my biggest one. And the other thing is too, I've learned that every day is a blessing. And I don't say that lightly. I really and truly mean that. And every day is a gift. And, I haven't always lived like that, particularly when I was working too hard, that you have to have balance, because why work so hard if you can't appreciate I start every day sitting out on the veranda. Our house is 180 years old, and I sit out there with my husband and we have a coffee or a tea or whatever, and we just sit and we let the dogs have their brekkie, and we just go, we're grateful for this day that lies ahead. And that is hand on heart how I live my day.
Do you struggle with bookkeeping or wonder how your business is doing financially? Yep, me too. Meet my finance friend and sponsor of this episode, Sarah Henny from Henny CFO. Sarah is based in Longreach, rural Queensland, and is empowering women to make confident financial decisions with her new flagship program, Bookkeeping for Profit. This unique online bookkeeping and business course provides you with the information, systems, and support you need to set up your own business, understand GST, read a P&L, manage cash flow, all of it and more. Work through the online training at your own pace with weekly support and access to a community of like-minded businesswomen from rural and regional areas who, like you, want to change the game, have a crack and be confident in their bookkeeping, because you've got to know your business to grow your business. If you want to know more about the program or register for a free masterclass and work with Sarah, head to the show notes or find Sarah on Instagram at HennyCFO. Now back to the episode. I was just envisaging your property, Linda, like as you said, just, big veranda, old home,
Yes,
just
and
absolutely.
horses. Yep.
Oh, and horses, just fresh air. Tell me about COVID then. What has the last 2 years been like for you, living where you do and in terms of your business as well?
COVID, you're asking lots of really great questions. We've been really fortunate in that even prior to COVID, as a family, we have learned that, don't look too far ahead, don't look back, just take the day as it comes, and have had such tragedy that for us, we're a resilient family. So COVID didn't actually, I think when it first started, it was scary, but we actually took it as an opportunity to do things differently, to pivot, at every level. So with our businesses, we were pivoting in terms of, if we can't meet our clients face to face, how do we connect with them? So we did a lot of things differently online. This is where I use one of the skills I've learned through collaboration in the charity industry. We align with a whole lot of other really, well-known equine companies who weren't competitors but had a similar ideal customer, and we did some great online competitions. And things like, I can't remember what the app was that we used, but they would increase their chance of winning if they, liked our socials, if they invited friends, which meant our social media following grew, our email list grew, and then we started to embrace all those other, they call it omni-channel, which is a really sophisticated way of saying, we use emails, we use websites, we use social media. And that was fantastic. And it was really interesting because when I approached these companies, they were just like, but, this is not what normally happens. Businesses don't work together. And we did, and it was fantastic. And we had a lot of growth in the first year of lockdown. I've noticed this second year has been a different experience. I think people are being much more conservative and cautious how they spend their money, and rightly so. So again, we're looking at what does that mean for us? How do we pivot? How do we change? And we just keep evolving. But, we're in the animal space, and people will always do something for their animals. So we were very fortunate in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. Just talking about that whole omni-channel, like, do you put more value in your email list than your social media? I'm just interested to know.
No, increasingly we are. I feel like people are getting a bit, I don't know, they're a bit exhausted about being on Zooms and webinars and things like that. And even I think some of the social media channels are losing respect. So we've actually really been creative with our emails in the last 6 months, and it's really paying off. It gives me, as a company, we're all about education first. I don't want people to use our product and still feed their horses the equivalent of a really fast food diet. So it's about all the ways we can improve their health. We can do that through emails, and there's so many amazing women out there doing incredible things. There's a lady that we met that's doing a great app. I think it's called Convert Dial. Hope I'm allowed to say that. And what you do, you take your Shopify stats and your Klaviyo or whatever else you're using, and it comes up with what's a cold list, a warm list, and a hot list. And then you can then do targeted strategies depending on what segregation they're in. It's really been interesting, and it's really paid off. So I feel like emails are a very underutilized resource. And so anybody listening, if they're not capturing email addresses, you're really missing out on an opportunity to do it, but then be strategic about how you use it.
Absolutely. I do a lot of social media training to rural businesses around Vic, New South Wales, and, that pays the bills for me. But I think one of the things that I say in those workshops is, I know you're here for social media, but please be building your email list outside of it.
Yes.
Gosh, Instagram can disappear in a moment. Facebook
Yes.
is so unpredictable and just useless, to be honest.
Absolutely.
And as you said, we've lost faith in some of these platforms, in what they're doing and how they're doing things.
They do work together, and we still use them. Like, I really like my Facebook group so I can really connect with their audience. But early on, we had such a big reliance on Facebook, and it was useful. But there was a time when Facebook, I can't remember, something happened. It made us realize how vulnerable we were. We thought, wow, Facebook they're calling the shots at the moment, and I don't feel comfortable with that. So, whereas you own your email list. And I did hear some interesting, somebody was talking about when, if ever down the track you want to sell your business, that often they'll buy the business based on what your email list like. So it's actually an asset as well.
Oh, a huge asset.
Mm.
I think because we can buy followers, I know friends in the early days who got caught in that. You'd have a business, sort of given to you, and they said, oh, look, and we've also got this social media audience that come with it of, X thousand. And then when you dug into the background, most of those followers were from Russia, or,
Wow.
they're just not your
Gosh.
target audience. Yeah. So this was
Gosh.
really early on. I sort of say like the last 6 years sort of thing.
Okay.
So obviously had happened, quite a bit around that time. And whereas your email list, as you said, is something that you've cultivated yourself, they're people that are
Yes.
really interested in what you're doing.
Yes.
Just treat them like gold. They're
Absolutely.
just little gold stars. But
Yes.
we got off a tangent then. I still think there was great value in that.
And I love sharing these things because we are a new company, so we've had to come in and do things differently right from the word go.
Yeah.
And I learned 3 magic words the other day, which I have been using over and over. Things have changed. And I can't take credit for seeing those words. I was on some webinar, and it's such a great term because it's about saying, yes, we've done it this way in the past, but things have changed. And for us as a company, we have absolutely embraced this whole e-commerce digital marketing, and it's been really interesting. We don't have sales reps. We don't have people going out to stores. In fact, we meet people, where are they at? And they're online. So, of course, relationships and meeting them face to face important. We go to events when we can, but when COVID was on, we couldn't do that. So how else can we meet people? And it's really exciting. We basically started our business on Facebook, and then it's grown and grown and grown. It's probably one of the number one, horse gut supplements in Australia now after 4 years.
Wow. Now, there seems to be a lot of highs in your business. Have there been any hurdles, any biz hurdles?
The hurdles for me, there's a few. It's finding the right, talent, staff to come and work with you. And that is challenging because we are a dynamic, diverse, constantly evolving business. And not everyone wants to work in a space like that. Some people like really clear, consistent days. So that has been a challenge. But I've learned to kind of trust that the right people, if they don't stay, they step out. And you just, you value the time they're there. But that has been a challenge. The other challenge we have at the moment is that we've identified the equine gut space as a really hot space. And so now there's lots of other companies trying to, copy what we've done. And I had this great quote sent to me the other day, and it was fantastic because it just reminded me, people can copy your ideas, they can copy your content, but they can't copy your integrity and your authenticity. And they can't copy who you are. And that's what I think we've just infused Poseidon with, is our love and our intent. So it's hard. It is hard when you see competitors coming out and basically, doing things, and you go, gosh, you've even used our copy. So that's the challenge. And what else has there been? I have to keep reminding myself of the word balance again. And that's my mantra this year, balance, because I love, love, love what I do. And I've learned from the past that you can't keep working at that pace because something gives. So my challenge is about harnessing all my enthusiasm and energy and being really strategic where I use it now.
Yeah, I think that's really important, Linda. When you do launch a business, and as you said, you just love it and you're so passionate about it, it doesn't feel like work at the time.
That's true.
That's the tricky part, I think. Yes. And then just knowing that if you, as you said, you keep on that, in that lane at that pace, yes. You're going to hit a roadblock at some point. Yes. So, you just got to, just stretch it out, take little breaks. It'll all still be there.
Oh, and, actually, I love quotes, and I'm always gathering them. And I heard another good one that's used a lot. You don't sprint in a marathon. And I have to keep remembering that. Don't sprint in a marathon. Just take it. But you do have to, if you're going to go away from a 9 to 5 and have your own business, there is absolutely an element of, being all in. So you do have to still be, it is a different approach. But it's about knowing that you have to, you might do an after-hours Zoom as long as you then make up, have that time off the next day. Or another good tip I got taught last year was that when you overschedule, there's no room for compassion in your life. So if something goes wrong, like a staff member's sick, rather than going, oh, are you okay? It's like, damn it, what am I going to do today now? And when she said that to me, it was like, yes, okay, I need to slow down. So I've got time to sit and have great chats with people like you. Or if I have a lot of, sadly people reach out to me that are newly bereaved and they just want to know that they're going to get through what they've been through. And I need to have time to be able to do those things. So it's that real balance and don't sprint in a marathon.
No. There's actually a beautiful little segue there, Linda. I love a segue. As you said, just people reaching out to you that may have recently lost someone as well. You are also an author and have recently released a book.
Yeah, Crawling to the Darkness.
Great title too, by the way. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you. And do you know what's really interesting about the title? And this is the first time I've shared this publicly. I actually haven't felt comfortable sharing the background of the title. Literally, I have learned the power of meditation and trying to quieten my brain. And about 5 years ago, when I knew I wanted to write the book, and I'll tell you why in a moment, but I literally doing this meditation and I heard the words crawling through the darkness. And I went, what was that? Oh my goodness, that is the title of my book. And the reason why I wrote the book is, as I mentioned earlier, when Molly died, the story was just one of complete, your life will never be the same again. And it isn't the same, but it's still a life of purpose and joy. And I wanted to show that there was a different possibility. And I wanted to wait, it's coming up to 10 years, and I wanted to wait till I was really ready to share my story. And I feel like the success of the businesses is also a way to say, hey, I really do mean what I'm saying, that you can still have a life of purpose even after great loss. And I want to encourage conversations around death and loss. And the amount of people that have reached out to me, the book only launched 2 weeks ago, and I'm proud to say we sold out the first print run. So I've now,
Wow.
yeah, but I'm loving the conversations, the honesty. People that have held on to grief for 30 years are contacting me and saying, thank you. I understand why I did what I did, or I now know it wasn't my fault, or I've now spoken to my son about what's going to happen when I die. And it's such a privilege to walk that journey with people. And a beautiful man reached out to me. Actually, I was given a book earlier on in the days, and there's not many grief books I actually really like, but which sounds funny, seeing I've just written one. But he gave me this great analogy, because after I read his book, I contacted him and he got straight back to me, and he gave me this great analogy, and he said that grief, and when I talk about grief, yes, I've experienced incredible grief with my mum, my daughter, but grief can show up in so many ways. It can be, breakdown of a marriage, not being able to have children. It can be loss of a career. Grief has so many, elements to it. But when you first suffer some sort of major loss, he likened it to a mountain. And at the time, all you can see is the mountain. But as time goes on, the mountain blends into your landscape. And when he told me that, I went, I love that analogy. And so I use that in the book to explain that in the early days of loss, you sit at the base of the mountain, it's dark, there's no sound, there's no one with you, you just sit there. But interestingly, time at the base of the mountain is really important. And some people will then sadly stay there forever, and that's not what I did. Or they'll sprint to get away from the mountain through avoidance, running from grief, whatever it takes. For me, it was this real developmental stage, sit, then crawl, then walk. And so it's every step along the journey taught me something different. And that's what my book's about. So that's where the title came from. And at the time, I didn't actually know that I would use the mountain as the analogy in the book. So it works out really well.
Yeah, it does. Oh, Linda, I could just sit and listen to you just tell stories. I think you're a storyteller. I really do. There's just something that you explain things, and I'm going to finish this podcast and see if I can just absorb anything else that you've done in the media landscape and just take it all in from aspects of business and, obviously your being an author and writing the book and all of it. And I could pull everything apart even more, but I actually want to save some because I feel like this. I need to do this again. So to wrap us up, my favorite question, can you tell me about a friend of yours that we need to know about?
So when I thought of that question, there are so many people that I could mention, but I love horses. And I mentioned earlier that I am really, I want horse owners to know how to feed their horses better and look after them better. So we have one of our consultants, actually, Dr. Nerida Richards. She is an amazing lady. She's based in Tamworth. And she has set up this incredible online program where people can actually get on and figure out how to feed their horses. So I love that she's done this all on her own. And she's really making a difference as well. And I work really closely with Nerida, and she's just, she's like me in that it's about the horse comes first and the business comes second.
Beautiful. We have to find her. Although I know that we have people that listen to the podcast that are horse mad. So, yeah, obviously, go and do the Google and you'll definitely find her that way. Beautiful. I love it. Thank you for being a guest today, Linda. It has been an absolute pleasure, and it is the first time that we've spoken. And I just want to thank Erin from Chuckle Media who connected us. She is. She's absolutely wonderful. And I just really appreciate that she's just so in line with Oak and knows what stories that, will connect. I know this one is really going to connect. Obviously, you have your book. So I'm going to go and find a copy for myself and make sure that everyone knows where to find it as well. So I'll pop it in the show notes on our socials and all of that, as well as the Satan Sinner kombucha. I'm really interested in that.
I am biased, but it is particularly delicious. Watermelon, nice. And there's passion fruit and pine lime coconut. And surprisingly, guys are really loving it. They're stopping the beer and drinking the, Satan Sinner. So shout out to the men as well.
Perfect. Love it. I'm not a horse person, but I do have a dog. We've just got a dog. Oh, okay. God. So I'm all over the canine gut health support. So going to have a look at that for him. And
it's a game changer. It will,
good.
You give a dog a great gut and they are just the happiest, most content, resilient animal. I didn't even know, my puppy's been on it since birth, and I've never seen a dog so happy and so resilient.
Oh, my God. Will he stop wrecking my rugs, Linda? I mean, it's just killing me.
Not sure about that. Anyway.
Costing me a fortune. But yes, thank you so very much. And
thank you so much for having me.
I just can't wait to connect again.
Anytime.
Now, before you take off with all that inspiration and knowledge, we'd love for you to leave a review on our podcast so that we can continue to amplify women's voices in the media. And if you have any questions, you'd like to celebrate a win, you can always connect with us on Facebook and Instagram at Oak Magazine AU. I'm so glad we've met and that now you know a friend of mine.